My mother-in-law suddenly became obsessed with helping with our marriage, showing up uninvited, asking about our arguments, then smirking. You'd be surprised what a wife tells her mother. I thought she was just meddling, until she casually mentioned something that happened while my wife wasn't even home. I work in cybersecurity. Specifically, I spend my days hunting for unauthorized access, identifying breach patterns, and figuring out how people get into systems they're not supposed to be in. I'm telling you this up front because the irony of what happened in my own house is not lost on me. Not even a little. My name's Thomas. I'm 34, married to Jenna for 6 years, together for 9. She teaches 3rd grade. I sit behind monitors all day looking for digital ghosts. We're not a flashy couple. We've got a 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb outside Charlotte, a dog named Biscuit who's afraid of his own shadow, and a Friday night routine that involves takeout and whatever true crime series Jenna's currently obsessed with. We're boring in the best possible way. Or we were. Jenna's mom is Diane, 61, retired, used to manage the front office at a dental practice for about 20 years. For most of the time I've known her, Diane was fine. A little opinionated, sure. She had thoughts on everything from what brand of dish soap we used to where we hung our towels. But it was manageable. Jenna would roll her eyes. I'd smile and nod, and we'd move on with our lives. Then Diane's husband left her. Rick, Jenna's dad, walked out about 2 years ago after 35 years of marriage. No affair, no dramatic blow-up. He just told Diane one night that he hadn't been happy in a long time and he was done. Packed a suitcase, moved into an apartment across town, and that was that. Jenna took it hard. She still talks to her dad occasionally, but it's strained. Diane took it worse. She went from being a moderately overbearing mother-in-law to something I didn't have a word for at the time. Now I do, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It started with the visits. About 8 months ago, Diane began showing up at our house without calling first. Not once a week, not twice, 3, sometimes 4 times. She'd bring food we didn't ask for, rearrange things in the kitchen she thought were in the wrong place, and settle onto our couch like she was clocking in for a shift. I'd come home from work and find her there, shoes off, watching our TV, Biscuit curled up next to her, because that traitor will love anyone who scratches his ears. At first I told myself it was loneliness. Her husband left. She's rattling around that big house by herself. She needs connection. Fine. I get it. I'm not heartless. But then the question started. So how are things between you two? Really? She'd ask this with her reading glasses perched on her nose, looking at me like a therapist running an intake session. I'd say things were fine, because they were, and she'd give me this little smile. Not warm. Knowing. Like she had information I didn't. You'd be surprised what a wife tells her mother, she said one night at Sunday dinner. Just dropped it into the conversation between passing the green beans and asking Jenna about a parent-teacher conference. I looked at Jenna. Jenna looked at her plate. And Diane just kept eating, that little smile still on her face. Here's the thing. Jenna and I argue sometimes. Every married couple does. We'd had a disagreement the week before about money. Nothing catastrophic, just a difference of opinion about whether to redo the guest bathroom or wait another year. Normal married stuff. But 2 days after that argument, Diane showed up with paint samples. Actual paint samples. For the guest bathroom. She spread them across our kitchen table and said, Jenna mentioned you two were talking about the bathroom. I thought these would look nice. I looked at Jenna again. Jenna mouthed, I didn't, behind Diane's back. I filed that away. Force of habit. Over the next few weeks, I started keeping a mental log. Diane would reference conversations Jenna swore she never had with her. She'd bring up Thomas's work schedule being so demanding when I'd only mentioned a busy week to Jenna in passing while we were brushing our teeth. She'd comment on purchases I'd made, ones I'd barely mentioned to anyone. Not big things. A new pair of running shoes. A book I ordered. Small, specific details that shouldn't have traveled from our house to Diane's ears. I brought it up to Jenna carefully. Does your mom seem more involved lately? She's lonely, Thomas. Her husband left. She's just trying to stay close. I know, but she keeps bringing up things I don't remember telling anyone. Jenna gave me the look. The one that means I'm being paranoid and she'd rather not have this conversation. She's my mother. We talk. I probably mentioned things and forgot. I let it go. I'm married, not stupid. I know when to push and when to back off. But I also know what a pattern looks like. It's literally my job. Then came the faucet. The guest bathroom had a slow leak. The faucet dripped intermittently, one of those things you notice at 2 in the morning when the house is dead quiet. It started on a Tuesday in March. I know the exact day because I logged it in my phone to remember to call a plumber. Jenna was at a professional development conference in Asheville, about 3 hours away. She left Monday afternoon and didn't come back until Thursday evening. During those 3 days, I worked, came home, ate leftover pizza, and listened to that faucet drip. I didn't call anyone about it. Didn't text Jenna about it because it wasn't urgent and she was busy. Didn't post about it. Didn't mention it to a single person. It was just me and Biscuit and a dripping faucet in an empty house. The following Sunday, Diane came over for dinner. We were cleaning up afterward, Jenna loading the dishwasher, me wiping down the counter, Diane leaning against the doorframe with a glass of wine like she owned the place. The conversation had been normal. Work, weather, Jenna's students. Then Diane swirled her wine, looked directly at me, and said, "You really should get that leaky faucet in the guest bathroom fixed, Thomas. Those things only get worse." I stopped wiping the counter. Jenna looked up from the dishwasher. "What leaky faucet?" "The guest bath," Diane said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "It drips." "How do you know about that?" I asked. I kept my voice level. Neutral. Professional. Diane shrugged. "Jenna must have mentioned it." "I didn't know about it until I got home Thursday," Jenna said slowly. She looked at me, then at her mother. "I don't think I mentioned it." "Well, someone did." Diane took a sip of wine. "Maybe you forgot." She changed the subject to her neighbor's new landscaping, and the conversation moved on. But I didn't, because I knew, with absolute certainty, that no one in my house had told Diane about that faucet. Jenna didn't know about it until she'd been home for 2 days, and even then she only noticed because I pointed it out. I hadn't told a soul. So either Diane was psychic, or she'd been in my house when neither my wife nor I were home. I sat with that thought for a long time that night. Jenna fell asleep around 11. I stayed up until 2, staring at the ceiling, running scenarios. In my line of work, you don't jump to conclusions. You gather data. You test hypotheses. You verify before you act. But I'll be honest with you. Lying in that dark bedroom, listening to the house settle and that faucet drip down the hall, I felt something I don't feel often at work. I felt like the breach had already happened, and I was just now discovering the logs. The Monday after the faucet comment, I came home from work and went straight to my home office. It's a small room off the hallway, nothing fancy. A desk, a monitor, a filing cabinet, and a shelf of networking textbooks I keep telling myself I'll donate. I use it for overflow work and personal finances. Tax documents, mortgage paperwork, investment statements. The boring stuff that keeps a life running. I stood in the doorway and looked. Really looked. The way I'd look at a server room after a suspected intrusion. The filing cabinet's second drawer was closed, but not all the way. About a 1/4-inch gap. Now look, I know what you're thinking. That's nothing. People leave drawers slightly open all the time. And you're right. Normally I wouldn't think twice. But I'm the only person who uses that filing cabinet, and I have a habit. When I close a drawer, I push it until it clicks. It's unconscious at this point, like locking a car door. Click. Done. Every time. That drawer hadn't clicked. I opened it. Everything was there. Tax returns, mortgage documents, a folder of old insurance policies. Nothing missing. But the mortgage folder was on top. I keep them alphabetical. Insurance, mortgage, taxes. The mortgage folder should have been in the middle. I took a photo of the drawer with my phone. Then I rearranged everything back to my usual order, closed it until it clicked, and went to make dinner. Over the next 2 weeks, I ran a quiet test. Every morning before I left for work, I'd photograph my office. The desk surface, the filing cabinet, the angle of my keyboard, the position of a pen I left on a specific stack of papers. I set them precisely, like I was staging evidence. Which, I guess I was. Jenna thought I was being weird about the office. "You've been spending a lot of time in there," she said one night. "Tax stuff?" I told her. Which was half true. During those 2 weeks, Diane came over 3 times. Once for dinner, once to drop off some things she'd picked up at Costco, and once because she was in the neighborhood. Each time, I checked the office afterward. The first visit, nothing moved. Second visit, pen shifted about 2 inches to the left, filing cabinet drawer slightly ajar again. Third visit, keyboard angle changed, and a document I'd left face down on my desk was face up. I want to be clear here. I wasn't angry yet. I was confused. Diane had a spare key to our house. We'd given it to her years ago for emergencies, watering plants when we traveled, that kind of thing. It was entirely possible she'd let herself in while we were out for innocent reasons and just happened to wander into my office. Maybe she was looking for something benign. Maybe she was nosy. People can be nosy without being sinister. But the faucet comment kept circling back. She knew about a problem in our house that started and existed only during a window when Jenna was 200 miles away. That's not nosiness. That's physical presence. I decided to talk to Jenna about it. I chose my words carefully. We were sitting on the back porch after dinner, biscuit chasing moths in the yard, the kind of quiet evening that usually makes everything feel manageable. Hey, has your mom been coming by the house during the day? Like when we're both at work? Jenna frowned. Not that I know of. What? Some things in my office have been moved around. Small stuff. Just wanted to see if maybe she'd stopped by to grab something. Thomas. She set her iced tea down. Are you seriously accusing my mother of sneaking into our house? I'm not accusing anyone. I'm asking a question. She has a key for emergencies. She's not breaking in. I didn't say breaking in. I said coming by. There's a difference. Jenna's jaw tightened. She's going through a really hard time. Her husband left her after 35 years. She's alone in that house every day. If she stops by once in a while, is that really the end of the world? If she's going through my personal files, yeah, that's a different conversation. She's not going through your files. God, Thomas, you spend all day looking for threats at work and now you're doing it at home too. That one stung. Not because it was mean, but because it was partially fair. I do see patterns everywhere. It's what I'm paid for. The trick is knowing which patterns are real and which ones are just noise. I dropped it, but I didn't stop watching. 2 days later, Diane came for dinner again. She was in a good mood, chatty, brought a bottle of wine and a new recipe she wanted to try. While Jenna was in the kitchen helping her cook, I sat in the living room pretending to read on my phone. Diane's purse was on the chair by the door. Her phone buzzed. I didn't touch it, didn't look at the screen, but I could hear her conversation with Jenna from the kitchen. I'm just saying, sweetheart, you work so hard. You deserve someone who prioritizes you. Thomas is a good man, but he's married to that computer screen. Mom, stop. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying what I see. Your father was the same way. Always somewhere else, even when he was sitting right in front of me. I don't want that for you. Thomas isn't dad. No, but patterns repeat, honey. I put my phone down and stared at the wall. Patterns repeat. She was right about that, at least. After dinner, Diane went to use the bathroom. She was gone for maybe 6 minutes. Longer than usual. When she came back, she was tucking her phone into her pocket and smiling. That casserole turned out perfectly, didn't it? Later that night, after Diane left, I checked my office again. Nothing disturbed. But I noticed something else. The shared laptop we keep in the living room, the one Jenna and I both use for casual browsing and streaming, was open to the home screen. I always leave it closed when I'm not using it. Jenna said she hadn't used it that evening either. That laptop has our iMessages synced to it. Every text Jenna and I send each other shows up on that screen. I sat down and checked the recent activity. Someone had scrolled through our message history. The scroll position was different from where I'd left it. Whoever had been reading had gone back about 3 weeks, deep into a stretch where Jenna and I had been texting about our finances, about whether to refinance the house, about a retirement account I'd been considering. My chest got tight. Not panic. Recognition. I'd seen this pattern 100 times on the job. Unauthorized access, lateral movement through a system, information gathering. Someone was conducting reconnaissance on my marriage. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Jenna was already asleep. I lay there and thought about what I knew and what I could prove, which at that point were 2 very different lists. Then I remembered something. A few days earlier, Diane had been on the phone in our driveway after one of her visits. I'd been taking the trash out and heard a fragment through her open car window before she noticed me and lowered her voice. Sandra said the house situation is tricky since it's premarital property. Sandra, house situation. Premarital property. I bought this house 2 years before I met Jenna. It's in my name. Jenna's on the mortgage now because we refinanced together, but the original purchase, the equity I built before the marriage, that's mine. It's not something we've ever argued about. It's not something I've ever felt the need to protect. But apparently someone was asking questions about it. Someone named Sandra, and Diane was relaying the answers. I didn't sleep much that night. I went to work the next morning and did something I probably should have done weeks earlier. I talked to Greg. Greg sits 2 desks over from me. We've worked together for 4 years, gone through 2 system overhauls, and a ransomware scare that aged us both about a decade in 72 hours. He's the kind of guy who doesn't ask unnecessary questions and doesn't repeat things you tell him. In our field, that's worth more than any certification. I laid it out over lunch. The visits, the moved documents, the faucet comment, the laptop, the overheard phone call about Sandra and premarital property. Greg ate his sandwich and listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set his napkin down and said, "So your mother-in-law is basically running a social engineering campaign on your marriage." That's a dramatic way to put it. Is it wrong? I didn't answer that. "You need cameras," he said. "Your house, you're right. Just check the state regs on recording." I'd already been thinking about it. That night, I spent 2 hours researching North Carolina surveillance laws. No expectation of privacy in common areas of your own home. Video recording without audio in shared spaces is clean. I wasn't going to put a camera in a bathroom or bedroom. I wasn't going to record audio. I just needed eyes on my own front door, living room, kitchen, and hallway. My house. My security. No different from a Ring doorbell. Conceptually, just a bit more comprehensive. I ordered 4 small cameras the next day. Wireless, high-resolution, motion-activated, with cloud storage. Greg helped me position them the following Saturday while Jenna was at a teacher training workshop. I felt guilty about that, doing it while she was gone. But I also knew that if I told Jenna I wanted to install cameras because I thought her mother was breaking into our house and going through our files, that conversation would go sideways fast. I needed evidence first. Then we could talk. While I was at it, I changed the lock on my office door. Replaced the standard interior knob with a keypad deadbolt. Told Jenna it was a work compliance thing, that my company had updated their remote work security policy and any home office with company data needed to be secured. That was about 60% true. We did have a policy. I just hadn't been enforcing it. Jenna didn't question it. She doesn't get into the weeds of my work stuff. The same way I don't try to understand the intricacies of teaching 8-year-olds long division without losing my mind. Then I waited. In cybersecurity, waiting is half the job. You set your traps, you monitor your alerts, and you let the intruder come to you. The hard part isn't the technology. It's the patience. It took 4 days. Thursday morning, Jenna left for school at 7:15. I left for work at 7:45. At 9:22, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the app in my office at work, and there was Diane, walking through my front door with her spare key like she was coming home from a grocery run. No knock. No text to see if anyone was there. Just key, door inside. She went to the kitchen first. Opened the fridge, looked around, closed it. Then she walked down the hallway to my office door. Tried the handle. Locked. She stood there for a few seconds, tried it again, then stepped back and looked at the keypad like it had personally offended her. She actually put her hands on her hips. If the situation hadn't been so messed up, I might have laughed. She went back to the living room, sat down at the laptop, opened it, spent about 12 minutes on it. From the camera angle, I could see her scrolling. She took out her phone at one point and typed something while looking at the laptop screen, taking notes or sending information to someone. Then she closed the laptop, got up, and spent another 10 minutes walking through the house. She checked the guest bedroom closet, looked in the pantry, opened the cabinet under the bathroom sink. She wasn't looking for anything specific. She was surveying, taking inventory. Then she left, locked the door behind her. Total time inside, 31 minutes. I saved the footage. Then I sat at my desk and stared at my monitor for a long time without actually seeing it. Over the next 2 weeks, I captured 3 more entries. Always on weekday mornings, always between 9 and 11. She brought a tote bag once. Took it in empty, brought it out, and I couldn't tell if anything was in it. The second time, she spent almost 20 minutes at the laptop. The third time, she went straight to my office door, tried it, failed, and then sat at the kitchen table going through a stack of mail I'd left on the counter. Our mail. I started documenting everything in a spreadsheet. Date, time of entry, time of exit, rooms visited, activities observed. I backed up all footage to a separate encrypted drive. Old habits. Meanwhile, I needed to figure out who Sandra was. The name Diane had mentioned on the phone. Sandra said the house situation is tricky since it's premarital property. That's not casual friend advice. That's legal language. Premarital property, equitable distribution, those terms don't come up in normal conversation. I asked Greg to do me a favor. Nothing illegal, nothing even particularly clever. Just a public records search. Bar association directories are public. Property records are public. Greg found a Sandra Whitfield, family law attorney, practicing in Charlotte. Her firm's website listed her specialties: divorce, asset division, custody, prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. I cross-referenced Sandra Whitfield with Diane's phone records. I know, but Diane had called our landline a few times, and the caller ID log showed her cell number. From there, I checked public social media. Sandra Whitfield and Diane were in the same book club. There were photos on Sandra's Facebook page from a holiday party, Diane standing right next to her, wine glasses raised, big smiles. They'd been friends for years. Diane wasn't just being nosy. She was building a case, gathering financial information from my house, feeding it to a divorce attorney friend, and working to convince Jenna that her marriage was failing, all while smiling, bringing casseroles, and telling Jenna she just wanted to help. I'll give her this. As social engineering goes, it was pretty sophisticated. She was patient, systematic, and she understood her target's vulnerabilities. If I hadn't done this exact kind of work professionally, I might never have noticed. But knowing and proving are different things. I had camera footage of Diane entering my home unauthorized. I had evidence she was accessing our personal laptop. I had circumstantial connections to a divorce attorney. What I didn't have was a recording of Diane telling Sandra about our finances, or any direct proof that she was photocopying documents or gathering information for a legal strategy. I needed more, and I was about to get it because Diane was about to hand it to me. 2 weeks later, Jenna came home from school looking conflicted. She sat down at the kitchen table and said, "Mom thinks we should look into couples therapy." Do you think we need couples therapy? I don't know. Maybe. We've been a little disconnected lately. We've been fine, Jenna. We had one argument about the bathroom renovation. It's not just that. Mom says sometimes people don't notice how far apart they've drifted until it's too late. She said. Jenna trailed off. She said what? She said I should understand my rights. Just in case. She has a friend who's a lawyer. There it was. Right there on my kitchen table, served up like one of Diane's casseroles. Did she give you the lawyer's name? Sanders something. I told Mom I didn't want to talk to a lawyer. We're not getting divorced. No, I said. We're not. Jenna looked relieved. I felt something closer to calm. The kind of calm that comes when you've finally mapped the entire attack surface and you know exactly where the breach is. 2 days later, Diane called Jenna to plan a girls' weekend. Spa day, shopping, overnight at Diane's house. Jenna seemed excited about it. I told her to have a great time, because I already knew what Diane was going to do the moment Jenna was safely at her house, and I was supposedly at work. She was going to come back to mine, and this time, I was going to be ready. The girls' weekend was scheduled for a Saturday. Jenna left Friday evening. Diane picked her up, all smiles and hugs at the door, a canvas bag of snacks in one hand and a spa brochure in the other. She waved at me from the driveway. I waved back. "You boys have fun," she said, scratching Biscuit behind the ears. Biscuit wagged his tail like she was the best person alive. That dog has no instincts whatsoever. I spent Friday night preparing. First, I moved every sensitive document I had out of the house. Tax returns, investment statements, mortgage paperwork, life insurance policies, all of it. Packed into a box and locked in a safe deposit box at the bank that afternoon. Anything Diane might want to photograph was gone. Second, I left a honeypot. A document titled Financial Planning 2024 sitting on my desk, visible through the office door's glass panel if you pressed your face close enough. The document looked real. Letterhead from our investment firm, columns of numbers, account summaries. But the numbers were wrong. Not wildly wrong, just off enough that anyone who tried to use them for legal purposes would be working with bad data. I'd spent an hour making it look convincing. Occupational hazard. Third, I moved the laptop from the living room to the kitchen counter and left it open, unlocked, with our text messages visible on screen. But I'd changed the sync settings. The messages she'd see only went back 2 weeks, and they were mundane. Grocery lists, schedule coordination, a conversation about Biscuit's vet appointment. Nothing useful. All the real history was stored on my phone and backed up, but the laptop was now a dead end. Finally, I made sure every camera had a full charge and clear sight lines. Then I took Biscuit for a walk, came home, ate a sandwich, and went to bed. Saturday morning. My phone alarm went off at 7, but I was already awake. I showered, made coffee, and left the house at 8:15. Drove to Greg's apartment 4 miles away. Greg had set up his living room like a small monitoring station, which tells you everything you need to know about Greg. 2 laptops, the camera feeds live on one, a football game from the previous weekend on the other because Greg is a man of balance. We didn't wait long. At 9:41, Diane's silver Camry pulled into my driveway. "Showtime," Greg said. He muted the football. Diane got out of the car carrying a large tote bag and a manila folder. She glanced around the street, then walked to the front door and let herself in with the spare key. No hesitation. She'd done this so many times it was routine for her. Kitchen first. She set the tote bag on the counter and walked straight to the laptop. Sat down, opened it, and started scrolling. After about 4 minutes, she stopped, frowned, and scrolled some more. Then she picked up her phone and typed a message. I watched her face on the camera feed. She looked frustrated. The message history she was used to mining was gone. All she was getting was Biscuit's vaccination schedule and whether we needed more half and half. She closed the laptop and stood up. Walked down the hallway. Tried my office door. Locked. She punched random numbers on the keypad. Nothing. Tried again. Nothing. She pressed her face to the narrow glass panel beside the door frame, and I watched her eyes move. She saw the document on the desk. The honeypot. "There you go," Greg said quietly. Diane stepped back, looked at the keypad again, then did something I hadn't expected. She pulled a credit card out of her wallet and tried to slip it between the door and the frame. Old school lock bypass. It didn't work on a deadbolt, obviously, but the fact that she tried told me everything about her state of mind. She wasn't a casual snoop anymore. She was committed. She went back to the kitchen, opened her tote bag, took out a small folder and a USB drive. She plugged the USB into the laptop and spent about 7 minutes on it. From the camera angle, it looked like she was trying to copy files. I'd cleared anything personal off that machine 2 days ago, but she didn't know that. Then she unplugged the USB, put it back in her tote, and opened the manila folder she'd brought. Inside were documents. I couldn't read them from the camera, but I could see the formatting. Legal-sized pages, dense text, what looked like a letterhead at the top. She spread them across the kitchen table and took photos of our kitchen, our living room, the hallway, the closed office door. She was documenting the house, room by room, like a real estate appraisal. Greg looked at me. "Is she building a divorce file?" "Yeah," I said. "I think she's been building one for months." Diane spent another 15 minutes in the house. She opened closets, checked the garage, looked in the utility room. She wrote notes in a small notebook. Then she packed everything back into her tote bag, took one last look around the kitchen, and left. Locked the door behind her. Total time, 43 minutes. I sat in Greg's apartment and watched the empty feed of my own kitchen. The counter where my wife and I eat breakfast. The table where we do puzzles on rainy Sundays. The room where my mother-in-law had just conducted a 43-minute intelligence operation on my marriage. "You okay?" Greg asked. "Yeah. I just need to figure out the right way to handle this." "You've got enough to confront her." "I don't want to confront Diane. I want to show Jenna." That was the hard part. Diane I could deal with. Diane was the threat actor, and I had her mapped. But Jenna was my wife, and showing her that her mother had been systematically breaking into our home, reading our private messages, and building a divorce case behind her back was going to hurt her in ways I couldn't predict or control. I drove home Saturday afternoon and spent the rest of the day organizing. I compiled every piece of footage into a single folder. Chronological, date-stamped. I included my spreadsheet documenting every entry, the photos I'd taken of moved items in my office, the public records showing Sandra Whitfield's connection to Diane, and screenshots of the camera feeds showing Diane with the USB drive and the legal documents. I didn't include anything emotional. No accusations, no editorializing. Just data. In my experience, data speaks for itself. You lay it out, you let the pattern emerge, and you let the person looking at it reach their own conclusion. Jenna came home Sunday evening. She was relaxed from the spa, talkative about a restaurant she and Diane had tried, animated in a way I hadn't seen in weeks. I almost didn't want to ruin it. Then she sat down on the couch, pulled out her phone, and said, "Mom and I had a really good talk this weekend. About us. She thinks I should really consider what I want for my future." "What do you want for your future?" "I want us, Thomas." But Mom raised some good points about making sure I'm protected. Financially. Protected from what? Just, in general. She said, Have you ever thought about whether you're really compatible? And I don't know. Lately, I feel like we've been drifting. I'd heard those exact words before. Diane had said them to me 2 weeks ago, almost verbatim, standing in our kitchen while Jenna was in the bathroom. Have you ever thought about whether you two are really compatible? She was running the same script on both of us. I looked at my wife. She was sitting there holding her phone, wearing the worried expression of someone who'd been slowly convinced over months that her perfectly functional marriage was falling apart. She wasn't upset because she was unhappy. She was upset because her mother had told her she should be. "Jenna," I said, "I need to show you something. It's not going to be easy to see, but I need you to watch the whole thing before you react." She put her phone down. "What is it?" I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. "This is our front door camera from last Thursday morning." On the screen, Diane walked through our front door with her spare key, tote bag in hand, heading straight for the hallway. Jenna's face went still. I showed her everything. Every clip. Chronological. I didn't narrate, didn't editorialize, didn't point to the screen and say, "Look at this part." I just let it play. Diane walking through our front door. Diane trying the office handle. Diane sitting at the laptop scrolling through our messages. Diane pressing her face to the office glass panel. Diane with the credit card trying to bypass the deadbolt. Diane plugging in a USB drive. Diane photographing our rooms with legal documents spread across the kitchen table. Jenna didn't move. She sat on the couch with her hands in her lap, watching her mother walk through our home like a contractor doing a walkthrough, and her face went through about 7 different things in 10 minutes. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that looked a lot like shame. When the last clip ended, the one from Saturday morning, the 43-minute session while Jenna was supposedly enjoying a spa day, Jenna closed the laptop. Slowly, like the hinge weighed 100 pounds. "How long?" she whispered. "The cameras have been up for about 3 weeks. But based on what I'd noticed before, she's been coming in for months." Months. The faucet, Jenna. She knew about the faucet while you were in Asheville. She was in our house that week. Jenna stood up, walked to the kitchen, and came back with a glass of water she didn't drink. She just held it. "She told me you were pulling away. She said she could see it. She said you were always on your computer and I deserved someone who was present. She said Dad was the same way and she didn't want me to make her mistake." I know. She's been saying it for months. Little things. "Does Thomas really appreciate you? When's the last time he planned something special?" A wife shouldn't have to beg for attention. I thought she was just being protective. She was being strategic. Jenna looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Who's Sandra?" I told her. "Sandra Whitfield, family law attorney, Charlotte. Diane's friend from book club. 14 calls in 6 weeks." The overheard comment about premarital property. Jenna set the water glass down hard enough that it splashed. "She's been talking to a divorce lawyer. About my marriage. Without telling me." "Yeah. And bringing me the advice like it was her own. Make sure you're protected, sweetheart. A friend who's a lawyer said you should understand your rights." "Yeah." Jenna picked up her phone and called her mother. I didn't try to stop her. This was her conversation to have. Diane answered on the second ring. I could hear her voice through the phone, bright and warm. "Hey, sweetie. Did you get home okay? I was just thinking about that pasta we." "Mom, why were you in my house on Thursday?" Silence. 3 full seconds. "What do you mean?" "Thursday morning. 9:22. You let yourself in with the spare key. You tried to get into Thomas's office. You sat at our laptop for 12 minutes. Do you want me to keep going?" More silence. Then Diane's voice shifted. Lower, careful. "I was just checking on things. You know I worry about the house when you're both at work. I wanted to make sure everything was. You photographed our rooms, Mom. You brought legal documents. You plugged a USB drive into our computer. I don't know what Thomas has been telling you, but Thomas showed me the camera footage." The line went quiet. When Diane spoke again, her voice had changed completely. Harder. Defensive. "Cameras. He put cameras in your house. Do you understand how controlling that is? A man who spies on his own mother-in-law?" "Jenna, this is exactly what I've been trying to warn you about." I watched Jenna's face during that moment. It was the turning point. Because Diane didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She didn't say, "I'm sorry, I went too far." She pivoted. Instantly. Turned the evidence of her own actions into an accusation against me. And Jenna saw it happen in real time. "Mom, who is Sandra Whitfield?" "She's a friend. She's a divorce attorney. She's a friend who happens to be an attorney. and I asked her a few questions because I was concerned about my daughter's well-being. Is that a crime? You were feeding her our financial information. Information you got by breaking into our house. I have a key, Jenna. I wasn't breaking in. Your husband is twisting everything. The key was for emergencies. And I think your marriage is an emergency. You just can't see it because you're too close. Jenna closed her eyes. When she opened them, her voice was steady, quieter than I'd ever heard it. Mom, I need you to listen to me. I'm not going to argue with you tonight. I'm going to say this once. You entered our home without permission. Repeatedly. You went through our private messages. You went through Thomas's personal documents. You gave our financial information to a divorce attorney without my knowledge or consent. You spent months trying to convince me my marriage was failing while actively working to make sure it did. Jenna, everything I did was to protect you. I need space. I don't know how much. I don't know for how long. But I cannot talk to you right now, and I need you to respect that. Diane started crying. After everything I've done for you, after everything I sacrificed, you're choosing him over your own mother. I'm choosing my marriage. And I'm choosing honesty. Good night, Mom. She hung up, set her phone face down on the coffee table. Biscuit, sensing the tension with whatever minimal instincts he has, crawled onto the couch and put his head in her lap. Neither of us said anything for a while. Then Jenna looked at me. Why didn't you tell me about the cameras? Because I needed to be sure before I accused your mother of something this serious. If I'd been wrong, it would have damaged your relationship with her for nothing. And if you'd been right, but I didn't believe you, then I'd have the footage to show you. Which is what happened. She nodded slowly. I'm mad at you for not telling me. And I'm furious at her for making it so you couldn't. That's fair on both counts. What happened next took months, not days. I want to be honest about that. There was no single dramatic moment where everything resolved. Life doesn't work that way. Diane tried the flying monkey approach first. She called Jenna's aunt, her cousin, two of Jenna's old friends from college. The story she told was that Thomas was controlling and paranoid, that he'd installed surveillance cameras to monitor Diane, that he was isolating Jenna from her family. Some of them called Jenna. Some texted me directly. I responded to each one the same way, calmly, with facts. A few of them came around once they understood the full picture. A few didn't. That's how it goes. We changed the locks. Obviously, no more spare keys for anyone. Jenna and I started couples therapy, a therapist we chose together from a list our insurance provided, not someone Diane had pre-selected. It was good, harder than I expected. Jenna had to unpack years of her mother's influence. The way Diane's opinions had been subtly woven into Jenna's own thoughts until she couldn't tell the difference. It wasn't just about the break-ins. It was about a lifetime of Diane framing herself as the only person who truly understood what Jenna needed. I had my own work to do. I'd spent so long in analysis mode that I'd forgotten to just be present. Jenna wasn't a system to monitor. She was my wife. The cameras came down once the situation was resolved. All of them. I didn't want to live in a house that felt like a security operation. 6 months later, here's where things stand. Jenna and I are solid. Better than before, if I'm being honest. Going through something hard together either breaks you or bonds you, and we chose the second one. Diane is in therapy. That was Jenna's condition for any continued relationship. Not optional, not negotiable. Diane resisted at first. Then Jenna didn't call her for 5 weeks, and Diane found a therapist by week 6. They talk on the phone now, once a week, supervised in the sense that Jenna sets clear topics and ends the call if Diane starts steering. It's not warm yet. It might never be what it was. But it's honest, which is more than it was before. Sandra Whitfield was never contacted by Jenna. Whatever file Diane had been building, it died on the vine. I don't know what happened to the USB drive or the legal documents. Frankly, I don't care. They were built on stolen information and bad data from a honeypot document. So good luck with that. I still work in cybersecurity. I still come home to biscuit and takeout and whatever series Jenna's currently binging. Our Friday nights are boring again, in the best possible way. But I did learn something from all of this. The biggest threats don't always come from outside the perimeter. Sometimes they come from someone with a spare key, a casserole, and a smile. Someone who's been inside your network so long that nobody thinks to check the access logs. My advice: check the logs. Even the ones you think are clean. Especially those.